You're listening to Infinite TBR, the podcast where we try not to buy more books. I'm Smack.
And I'm Gabi. Spoiler alert, we're going to avoid major spoilers, and when we can, warn when we're going to discuss a particular book in detail, so you can avoid that part of the episode. You can also check the show notes for time-stamped flags identifying potential spoilers. Future Gabi here. This time not with spoilers, but with kind of a disclaimer. We made the rookie mistake of recording in front of an open window on a windy day because we live in San Diego, where it is beautiful. Why would you ever close the windows? The answer we have found out since is because you're recording a podcast. So there are a couple spots where there's some wibbly wobbliness, and we apologize for that in advance. Now we're back with round 2! The Mysterious Galaxy Summer Bingo.
Roundup.
Throwdown. Tournament. PvP. Who's gonna win? When we left off, I had 2 seconds ago, I had 6. You had 5.
I had 5, and we had one tie.
So
we're halfway through the 24 bingo spots.
Okay. Next up. Smack has to fight to convince me that Fierce Fairytales was better than
Shadow of the Fox.
Oh, no, I win. Okay.
You do.
Do I? Okay.
You do.
Okay, tell me
Fierce
about Fierce Fairytales.
was good. It's very much like a feminist retelling of a bunch of fairy tales, and they're both prose poems and actual, like, regular poems.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one.
You
Love
should
me
be.
some fairy tales.
It's good.
Sounds great.
It's good. It does get a little repetitive by the end.
Okay.
Not by the end, but like the 2/3 mark, and then it picks up again.
Okay.
But like it's a really good collection.
Okay.
It's not
the Shadow.
It's not the Shadow of the Fox.
Okay.
God, you're wiping the floor with me.
The rest must be really good. Lycanthropy and other chronic illnesses.
Galactic Hellcats.
Okay, yeah, I think.
Yes, but we should explain Galactic Hellcats.
Galactic Hellcats was a really fun romp, sci-fi, space opera romp, found family, space motorcycles. Like they form this adorable little girl gang.
Plus one.
Plus one.
Plus one guy. But the whole premise is that the main character gets
Key.
Yes. K-I. Key.
Yeah.
She inherits this like super freaking fancy space-worthy motorcycle.
Not quite legally, like.
Yeah.
There's some question over whether.
And it's from her best friend who dies from some horrible wasting.
It's a really sad beginning. I remember getting to that part and I was like, why am I reading this?
And it's really sad. Her best friend dies.
Yeah.
He's like her only friend.
Yeah, her only friend, her only family, like the only person in the world she cares about and could.
And he leaves her this pristine space motorcycle.
And she's desperate to fill that hole, like, immediately.
Yeah. But along the way, she collects
a found family.
Yeah, basically a small found family, and there's a heist. And then
she ends up almost, like, entrapping this, it's like Marjorie?
I can't remember their names.
I don't remember their names, yeah. But there's this, like, there's this war veteran who comes back and is, like, kind of at loose ends, looking for a job.
She's living with her parents.
Lives with her
can't
parents.
get a job.
They have really high expectations for her. And
she definitely has some PTSD.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's really interesting, though, because, like, her PTSD, she doesn't feel like she is allowed to have PTSD.
Yeah.
Because half the time, it's not, like, on Earth fighting. She was in a spaceship.
Yeah. And she wasn't, like, fighting. She was, like, a supplier or something.
Yeah, and sometimes she didn't even realize they were in, like, an actual battle and not a drill until it was all over. And everybody was like, oh, you did so well. You were so cool. Calm.
Yeah.
And then she freaks out.
Yeah, it hits her, like, several battles in. Like, all of a sudden, out of nowhere. And then honorable discharge. Right. And then the story picks up with her, like, trying to find a job after that.
A respectable job.
Yeah. That will shut up her parents.
She sort of...
And then she runs into Key. Oh, no, she ends up at a motorcycle lot. Right. And not their space motorcycle.
Just look.
Yeah.
I'm just looking.
And then, this car salesman suckers her.
And suddenly she's got a space motorcycle. And all of her back pay is gone.
Yep.
And instead of fessing up to her parents, who would absolutely not approve.
Yeah. Or, like, reselling it and getting any money back.
Anything back.
She runs into Key.
Yeah.
Who kind of drags her into all of her... And Key's just determined to, like, have an adventure or something with her. And just kind of drags her all over the galaxy for a while. And then they run into...
A rich girl.
In, like, their enemies, on their enemy's planet.
Is it Mars?
I don't think it's Mars, but I think it's the opposing...
It's like a neighboring planet with an opposing political system.
Yes. I think it's, like, the subject of the war, isn't it? Like, they're...
I don't think they were the ones who were fighting.
Oh.
I think it was a different... There are multiple space civilizations.
So this bored rich girl is convinced that the prince on her planet needs rescuing, which is not wrong.
Her.
Yes, by her specifically.
Specifically.
And she's not wrong, but, like...
Not from her.
Not right either.
Yeah.
So they stumble across Key and Marge. I don't remember her name. Stumble across her, whose name I also don't remember.
The vet and the rich girl.
Zuleika, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that.
And then his name I'm blanking on. But they just decide they're gonna rescue this dude. I don't remember why
poor put upon prince. I don't. There's some kind of like. Oh, there's a coup. His sister.
Yeah, there's a coup.
His sister pulls.
But that's
off
just
a coup.
accidental.
Yeah,
happens to be at the same time they kidnap him.
It's the only reason they succeeded.
Yeah. So it's a lot of like Key pulling them into one shenanigan after another,
and they just sort of like bounce around and maybe get through it. Okay.
And I felt so I sympathized really hard with Marge, or whoever that is, the vet, because she was like the closest to normal of all of them, and she was just like,
I think she could have been normal if she had like rejected Key in the motorcycles. Yes. But
she's the most like reluctant. She's just like so stressed out by all these stressful things happening, and everyone else is just like rolling with it. And she's like, I'm actually very stressed about all of this, and I was like very stressed about all of this.
So we empathized.
Yes. So it was delightful.
Yeah. But Shadow the Fox, as we illustrated 2 episodes ago, destroyed Gabi.
And that's the one I would that's the one I would reread if you put them both in front of me for sure. So next up, we got Trouble the Saints by Alaya Dawn Johnson. Alaya Dawn Johnson.
Burning Roses.
Ooh.
Okay.
I will fight you.
Okay.
So do you want Trouble the Saints? I've mentioned Burning Roses before.
You've read Trouble the Saints, but it's been a while.
Yeah. I started. Nope.
You didn't finish!
I read to 50%.
So you don't know what happens.
No. It was very good. Do not get me wrong. The writing was beautiful. It was not for me. That was my thing. Kidding. There were 2, it wasn't even that everyone was morally gray. I remember being frustrated because no one who was morally gray wanted to be morally gray, and they wouldn't just accept the fact that they are morally and just embrace it. Just like, if you're gonna go there, just go there.
There's a lot of angst.
But no one's happy. Everyone's unhappy with themselves and with each other, and I didn't care what happened to anybody because
you know what? That's why my mother hated it. She didn't care, and I was like, but you don't understand.
I didn't. So I have a really hard time with books when I can't decide how I want it to end. If I don't have a way I want it to end,
that's interesting.
Then, I mean, it can surprise me, it can twist, it can end unexpectedly, but I have to have something I want to happen.
I had no idea where it was going to go. And it was the best thing in the world.
I don't mind not knowing where it's going to go, but I want to be hoping for something. And if I'm not hoping for anything in particular, it can be a subplot, it can be like, I want this person to be happy, it can be as general. But I didn't care if any of them were happy. I was like, you all seem kind of like crap people. And I'm not sure. I didn't know what I wanted to happen. So I didn't know what to root for. I didn't know who I wanted to be happy. And I was really just bummed out by it. But it was beautiful writing.
It's amazing writing. And every bit of dialogue has a subtext, whether the character knows it or not.
So tell us the synopsis.
Oh, God.
And you can spoil it for me.
There is no back summary on it. There's just a bunch of blurbs.
Oh, I don't know.
And then there's a small paragraph on the inside cover. And it doesn't really explain what happens either. So I went in not really understanding what the book was about. And by the time I got to the end, I was like, okay, that's why there's no summary. It's about so many different things. It takes place on the eve of World War II in New York, in Manhattan and Brooklyn, but primarily Manhattan, in Harlem, I believe.
Okay.
So there are 3 main characters, whose names I am somehow blanking on all of them. So there's this premise that some people get a magical talent, and they call it having hands. And everybody's hands are different. White people do not get hands, and white people don't really believe in them either. So the book is divided into thirds, where each third has a different narrator. And so there's one woman, it starts with her, and she has been an assassin for a white mobster for the past 10 years. And her hands are why she's an assassin. She can do anything with knives. Like, there was this movie with James McAvoy where, like, he could shoot bullets around corners and stuff. Yeah, it was a bad movie, but, like, that's what she can do with knives. Anything she wants. And so there was this really traumatic event 10 years ago that broke up her and the love of her life, Dev, who is the second narrator.
I remember these 2 dummies just, like, couldn't.
He had so much guilt. Oh my god. It did get to be a little much at times, but, like, he is desperately turned on by blood and violence. And he's a pacifist. And so he hates himself for it. And he hates how much he loves it in Phyllis. Phyllis, Dev, and the other woman. So the Phyllis is the assassin with the knives hands. And 10 years ago, she had been with Dev, but she had been told by her white mobster boss that there was another white guy who was killing people of color and cutting off their hands. And so Phyllis went off on, like, a righteous mission and killed bloodily, violently, in his own bed, wrestled this dude and shoved a bunch of knives into him until he died after she had locked his girlfriend into the bathroom. And so 10 years later, his girlfriend comes back to kill Phyllis.
Future Gabi here, interjecting to let you know that spoilers for Trouble the Saints last from about here for about 6 minutes until the 1850 mark. That's 1850.
And this is Future Smack with a few interjections of my own. First and most important is the fact that I forgot to mention until quite late in our original recording that Phyllis is a black woman, but she's also spent most of her adult life passing as a white woman. Second is that, despite what I said in our original recording, the magic powers aren't just called hands, they're called saints' hands. Thus the title. Sorry about that.
And then it turns out that not only there's a lot happening, but basically Dev turns out to have been a police informant. Yes.
Okay.
This is a spoiler. Dev was a police informant the whole time. He is a cop.
Right, I remember this.
And he broke up with Phyllis because he knew that the guy she killed hadn't been killing people of color with hands. It was the mob boss who'd been killing everybody. And they end up killing the mob boss and trying to move out into the suburbs, essentially, to have a normal life. This black woman assassin in 1930s New York and this half Indian, half English guy, and they just want to be happy. And
they're so bad at it.
They're really bad at being happy. But, like, they do find each other again. And so they do find measures of happiness.
Right.
And they can see it on the horizon, but they're such flawed people. They're hyper intelligent, and they are so much smarter and so much more capable than all the white people around them, including the mayor and the rich guys and the developers and the weird Christian general store manager in this town that Dev sort of grew up in. He inherited this house in the Albany area or something outside of the city. And so he has a lot of weird memories about this town, being the only non-white person in this town growing up. And some stuff happens, Phyllis gets pregnant, but Dev is really worried about this curse that the white mob boss put on them. And it seems, for the most part, that it's useless worrying. But there's this whole culmination of, like, tensions within the town because he brought home a not white girl. Like, one half white guy was enough for the town. And after that, they were like, which is...
Love it.
And Phyllis does not give a shit. She's amazing.
Good.
She makes things worse, frankly.
Of
but
course.
like absolutely rightfully so.
Yes.
And she doesn't believe in the curse. And then Dev gets drafted. Pearl Harbor happens. Dev gets drafted. And he is genuinely torn about whether he should get out of it. 2, how to get out of it. Those are the 2 most important parts. And that's when things start getting complicated, is the second third. And then the last third is told from an omniscient point of view. Dev has been shipped out to the Pacific. There was this whole thing where, like, he tried to use his police contacts to get out of the draft, and then he tried to use the mob contacts to get out of draft, and eventually he was just like, I have to go. And for a while he was like, maybe I could just be a conscientious objector and they'll send me to jail, but, like, I won't have to kill anybody.
Yeah.
And, like, guiltily arouse myself or whatever.
Oh, Dev.
So Phyllis is pregnant when he leaves and kind of goes into seclusion.
Sounds healthy.
It's complicated.
Oh, boy.
But one of their other friends, she was like a snake dancer at the White Mobsters club. And she's this really, like, young, cute thing who is pretty superficial and has deliberately chosen to be superficial because, like, there's only so much you can stand while working for a crazy white mob boss.
Yep.
But it comes down to her to choose herself or Phyllis and Phyllis's baby.
Ooh.
Yeah. To break this curse. And she learns where hands come from, essentially.
Wow.
And it's just incredibly well played out, this tension between Phyllis, who doesn't believe in the curse, and her friend, who's like, you're gonna die if I don't sacrifice myself.
Oh.
I know. And none of it would be an issue with, like, frankly, even if the mob boss hadn't been white. I don't think it would have been an issue. But it's really depressing at the end.
There it is.
It's really depressing at the end. White supremacy kills them both. The baby lives.
Yay.
Dev was sent on a suicide mission because he was in a brown/black regiment. And Phyllis starts to have the baby. Something goes wrong, and they go to the hospital. And Phyllis has spent the last 15 years passing as white whenever she can, but the doctor doesn't believe that she's white, so they send her to the black hospital, and she dies before they get there.
Cool.
So it's white supremacy killed them all, except for the baby. And the friend.
Well, how'd the friend... Oh.
The friend, she, in learning how and why the hands came to exist, she didn't have them herself, but, like, she sort of made a deal with the ancestors and got rid of the curse.
Oh.
Didn't have to die herself. She was really excited about that.
And then Phyllis died anyway.
Yep.
Yay.
Not only did Phyllis die anyway, they got it's not a Dear John letter, but, like, when somebody dies.
Yeah.
So they got the letter. She opened it. She went into labor. They went to the hospital. She died.
Really glad I didn't finish that.
And then
glad.
There's this, like, because the last part is omniscient,
Yeah.
it follows the doctor who turns her away. And he's white, obviously. And there's this whole thing about, not a whole thing, it's like a paragraph and a half, where he goes home and has a whiskey in the evening and doesn't think about how he killed a woman.
I
It's
could
such
see
rich
if you weren't
storytelling.
Gabi.
Basically,
good.
the whole story ends up being a condemnation of white supremacy.
Yeah.
It's all about race, even when the reader doesn't really pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And there are some parts where, from what I can tell, the writer, who is black, she spun the narrative so that some things seemed less important because they stereotypically appear less important within a white supremacist society. And so, like, there are secondary characters who understand some things that are happening, but, like, Dev, when he's in, like, his whiteness mode, when he's in his camouflage mode, doesn't catch everything.
Ooh.
It's so good, but it's so depressing. And it's really complicated and thoughtful, and it's not something you should read, like, before bed because it's too intelligent if you're sleepy. And so, like, I loved it. My mother tried to read it. She got 50 pages in. She hated it.
So part of the problem is that was when I tried to audiobook, and it went
That one would be really hard.
It was really hard. It was hard keeping track of the world building because with like
the world building
audibly.
Yeah.
And then it was too slow for
an audiobook.
What was going on. Yeah. And audiobooks, you end up like sinking in them longer is kind of in a way, if that makes sense.
That one, like, I appreciated being able to like flip back and forth.
But I can tell even if I had read this.
It's not a Gabi book at all.
Okay, so
I adored it. I thought it's like an actual.
It seems
incredible
like
piece of literature.
Yes.
But it's not a Gabi book.
No, not a Gabi book. So
I
Burning
stand
Roses.
by it,
So okay, we're never gonna agree on this one, so we'll call that a tie.
Fireheart Tiger.
Pocket Workshop.
Oh.
Which one's Pocket Workshop?
Pocket Workshop is a series of short essays by speculative fiction writers online.
Like non-fic essays or?
Yeah, non-fic essays.
On writing.
Uh-huh. And it might have Aliette de Bodard in it. I can't remember. But it was one of those books where it had every big name ever, including Octavia Butler and Ursula Le Guin and Kim Stanley Robinson.
Okay.
Big ass names.
Okay.
It wasn't the best book on writing I'd ever read, but there were 2 specific parts I took away from it that have been really helpful in my writing.
So you've read these both.
I've read these both. I would read Pocket Workshop again.
Interesting.
Because I know the deficiencies in Fireheart Tiger, there were enough things, like especially the fire spirit. If there'd been more fire spirit, I probably would have read it again, but like...
Okay, we'll give you on the win on that one since you've actually read that one. Mooncakes by
Suzanne Walker and Wendy Zhu.
Okay. Versus
Soul of the Sword by Gill Kagawa.
So that was the weakest of the trilogy, we'll say.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the middle book usually is.
Yes.
But like,
and you've read these both. I mean, it didn't suffer for the reasons that second books usually do.
Yeah.
It just, like, there was a little stumbling at the beginning to get from A to B to get where they needed to go for the second book, but once they got there, it was really good.
Through the death.
Yeah, the whole that was
weird.
fine, but like the reasoning behind it just didn't stand up.
The death roads.
Plot wise.
Shadow roads, whatever.
Hey all, future Gabi again. Past Gabi was a bit of a brainless goofball and just spends the next 30 seconds completely spoiling the Shadow the Fox trilogy on accident. So if you don't want that trilogy spoiled, just fast forward 30 seconds from here.
And then we never find out what happened. I realized we never find out what happened with Okame and his brother.
Oh.
Like, he has this whole thing with his brother's spirit, and he's like, I'll probably tell you someday. But then everyone died, so.
So he probably told his brother. Oh, you mean everybody else? He was going to tell everybody else.
Well, he was going to tell,
what's her face? The fox.
Yumeko.
Yeah.
I fully just spoiled the trilogy. I'm going to have to put it in a
Oh,
spoiler alert. Or cut it out. Anyway, so you're the one who's read these both, so.
Mooncakes was cute.
Mm-hmm.
I would do Soul of the Sword.
Okay.
God damn it.
So you get for being honest.
Ugh.
Galactic Hellcats.
Oh my god! The Order of the Pure Moon on Water by Zencho.
Which you haven't read yet, right? So that's the Order of the Pure Moon reflected on water.
Reflected on water.
Yeah, I remember
said it
scribbling.
wrong.
I remember thinking we'd pull our own, and then I think I just shorthanded it because I was like,
No,
I know
it
the
says
whole title. Oh,
The
did
Order of the Pure Moon reflected in water.
Oh, good
I
for
just
me.
didn't read it right.
Okay, that's fine. Like, I would reread that before I would reread Galactic Hellcats.
Oh, that goes in the
Loser pile.
Oh, thanks.
Lobizona.
The Shell Game by Janet Evanovich.
I mean, that's again Anne Lee Goldberg. That's like a prequel short to the heist. It's cute.
Oh, wow.
It's like how they met, like or
Right.
how the first time he shows up on her radar. So it's like a cute little thing.
Lobizona was amazing.
Okay, well.
Argentinian immigrant werewolves running from ice. You're gonna love it. With a magic school.
Did you say it has a cliffhanger though? That's what I was wondering about. Because it has a sequel, right?
Yeah.
That's out.
I mean,
It's out.
I know, I've been on the waiting list since I finished the first one.
Oh, through the library?
Yeah.
You didn't just go buy
Well,
it?
because I bought the paperback Lobizona.
Oh, and it's
and
hardback?
Yeah. Which is like a dumb thing to get hung up on, but like...
Yeah, I'd have a problem with that too. That's why I went and got the first Simon Snow in hardback, even though I have a perfectly good paperback.
Oh, I should have just bought Lobizona in hardback, and then I could have them both in hardback.
You could just go get the hardback Lobizona and give me the paperback. If you think I'll like it enough.
You'd like that, wouldn't you?
Maybe. I don't know yet, do I? I haven't read it. And then by the time I get around to reading the Lobizona, the second one will be out in paperback. And then it'll work out for both of us.
God.
You see?
All I have to do is shell out for 2 hardbacks.
That's all. I'll pay you for the paperback.
Okay.
One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston.
Harriet Porber and the Bad Boy.
Parasaurolophus. Which I did not write down because I knew I would.
Parasaurolophus.
But did I write it?
I don't know. I can't read all the letters.
I ended up scribbling because I thought I would know
it's
what
clearly a Chuck Tingle book.
Yes,
and there was only one that you've read.
Yes,
so.
That's the one that's a anti-turf response to.
Thing.
And it was actually like the cool thing about it was Snape, the Parasaurolophus, has meta magic. He's like he's a famous rock star for the 9 Inch Nails. Is the real band 9 Inch Nails?
Yes.
Then for the 7 Inch Nails.
Okay.
In the book. But he has this meta magic ability.
So
so it manifests as it's a way of engaging with the audience when he writes their music. But it manifests as he can interact with the reader and comment on Harry Potter and all this stuff. And the way he worked that in actually was very interesting. How
I've heard that response over and over to Chuck Tingle stuff where people will be describing it and then they'll go, but actually it was really good.
Yeah.
Question mark?
That's what my friend Maria said too. It's it was surprisingly good. It doesn't sound like it would be good at all.
Because it's Chuck Tingle.
I don't know anything about Chuck Tingle.
Really?
No, I'd never heard anything.
He always does really dumb sort of overly topical books.
Okay.
And then
it was very strange. There were anthropomorphic motorcycles running around.
Yeah.
Things like that.
And he's been nominated for a Hugo twice.
Dang.
By the sad/rabid puppies. Did you hear about that?
By the what?
So
I've heard nothing about this person other than that he wrote Harriet Porber and the Bad Boy
definitely
Parasaurolophus.
explained this to you, but it's probably been a while. Pre-2016, the science fiction and fantasy community had a bit of a Nazi problem.
Oh yes, you did explain this part.
Yes.
I didn't know this had anything to do with Chuck Tingle.
Manifested into these 2 groups of alt-right guys, some of which were Nazis.
2 groups?
Yes. One, the original were called the Sad Puppies because they were just sad that there's so much diversity.
Gross.
And then the Rabid Puppies were mad that there's so much diversity. And they all came up with a bunch of voting slates for the Hugos.
Right, yeah.
And nominated Chuck Tingle as a joke, and then he sent...
that's unfortunate.
The woman who was the original victim of Gamergate, he had her go to the Hugo ceremonies in his stead to give a speech if he won. I don't think he won, but he's all right.
Yeah. Good. I was really worried where that was headed.
Yeah.
But
that's a vast oversimplification of the whole thing, but that's how he ended up Hugo nominated.
God, yeah, you have told me this. I didn't make the connection between
Yes. Yeah.
that. So yeah, it was I think it was under 200 pages. I read it on the plane on the way to Hawaii.
He cranks these things out whenever anything happens.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Fun, goofy, anti-turf nonsense.
And I have to say, I've never actually read a Chuck Tingle book. Hasn't come up.
If you'd like to, let me know, and I'll steal it back from
I think I'm okay. I've got other stuff on my list. So, One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston is...
We have mentioned that one before.
I think so.
Not in depth.
Not in depth.
Because you were just starting
read it or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, it's a delight.
Okay. I'll probably give you this one.
You're gonna love it. The premise is this girl named August moves to New York City to sort of...
Hey, another month name. Maybe that's why it came up.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
anyway.
I don't even remember why we were talking about that. So she moves to New York City, have to get away from her mother and have to like finish off her college, like to take more classes. She has no idea how close she is to finishing, and like actually like learns how close she is during the book. Like, oh, I might achieve something with my life. Yay. Who knew? But like her mother it's just her and her mom. And her mother is obsessed with the disappearance of her brother, who was like 10 years older and had moved to New Orleans and like sent her a letter every week, sent her postcards every week, and then he just vanished.
Oof.
And the parents would never talk about him or anything, and like it very quickly becomes clear that it's because he's gay. Like he left. It was the 70s. Right. And I don't even think her mother like realized it was because he was gay, which struck me as sort of weird. But like basically, so August and her mother have spent August's entire life trying to track down the brother / uncle, and they've never gotten anywhere close. But August has all these amazing investigative skills now. So she goes off to New York. She ends up sharing an apartment with like 4 other people.
Remember we discussed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Crazy. Like there's always something happening.
Yeah.
Not crazy, like bad crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's queer. Everybody is dealing with something, whether it be mental illness, and they're all broke. And basically, on the train one morning, August sees this like really cute girl, like this butch lesbian with like the leather jacket and the like kerchief or whatever and a scarf, and August is like, I just spilled coffee all over myself and I'm late for my first day at a waitressing job.
Adorable.
Great first impression. But like she's really cute about it and hands August a scarf, and they're having a moment, and then the train jolts and the electricity flickers on and off, and then the girl is gone, and it turns out she's stuck in 1975, I think, 73, 75.
Okay.
But she hasn't realized it. She only comes aware, like, more after she spends more time with August.
Ooh.
And then they start, like, exchanging, like, cassette tapes. August goes to, like, a bunch of thrift stores.
I love
and they call in requests for the radio. And then they send song requests back and forth to each other. It's so cute! It's so cute!
Okay, you win, you win. Take your winnings.
My one win.
I
don't even think I can beat you at this point.
I'm sure.
I'm not. Blood in the Thread? By Cherry.
Oh, that's
Sherry
the
Knight?
short story you sent me for my...
Oh, yeah!
I think fairy tale retelling.
Yeah. So one of the spots.
Yeah.
One of the spots was for a fairy retelling from 2021.
Fairy tale retelling.
Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. And you were short on books at that time. So I sent you, I googled tor.com Fairytale 2021. Because those are no longer the novelettes.
Right.
Which is like 11,000 words, 17,000 words.
So it was really short. It was online.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Was it good?
It was good. It wasn't happy. It was interesting because I feel like you could have walked away with like 2 wildly different interpretations of how it ended.
Oh, really?
And it was interesting to see some of the comments since it's on tor.com, because some people read it not the way I read it. I'm trying to remember details. It's a retelling of The Crane Wife.
Oh.
Which is about this guy accidentally shoots a crane, brings it back, nurses it back to health.
And it turns into a woman.
And it turns into a woman.
Right.
Or like goes, like he re-releases it and then she shows back up, and it's never like, I don't think she says she's the crane.
They never do.
But they've like, they get together, they get married, and then she closes herself into a room and says you can't come in, and ends up like making all these clothes for him to sell, like at market, and like, because he's like a merchant or something. It's something like that. And so he comes back, and every night she closes herself into this room and like makes a bunch of clothes. And then it's like, well, why does she need to shut herself in? And it turns out that because she's Crane, she's, I guess, plucking herself to make
oh my god,
these. So it's like almost like bleeding, and like so it's a very like violent, depending on like the version you read, I guess it's more or less gruesome. And sometimes it's just a surprise, you're the crane, and like you're putting yourself into this thing for me and us and our relationship. And sometimes it's a very like horror, gruesome-y, bloody thing. So this retelling is told from the point of, it's like a modern spin on it, where she's an actress and he's like an actor, and they end up in a lot of films together. And her makeup artist they're in love with each other. But their publicists, the two actors' publicists, like, basically arrange for them to be together. Like, it starts out as, like, just a fake romance just for the crowds or whatever, but it ends up, like, being more and more real. But there's, like, this layer of domestic abuse in there. Ugh. And the makeup artist is always, like, covering up bruises and stuff.
No.
But the language and the way it's told makes everything, like, very oblique, so it's kind of hard to figure out what exactly is happening. And I remember the ending... You could either read it as... So I read 2 layers of this. I remember saying that it was a really interesting way that it reflects these, like, folktale themes about love and sacrifice and what you're willing to put into a relationship. And the more direct reading was, like, their direct reflection of the original tale, which parallels, like, this abusive relationship in which there's no actual love. And what love is professed is disingenuous, and like all the sacrifices she's making in this relationship for their like fake relationship. Right. So there's that where it's her, this actress, and him that you could spin as like that's the retelling.
Right.
I read the retelling as the makeup artist and her, because the makeup artist is like putting herself into this like all this makeup and and her love for her is expressed in like her giving her this face to put on for the outside world. So that's the way I spun it. And then like the way it ended could be either, I don't remember how exactly it ended. Something happened like at the altar.
Ugh.
I don't remember. I remember it like you could have interpreted it either way.
I'm gonna read this after.
But it was I've seen like something you'd enjoy. I thought you would read it, but it was beautiful.
I just Googled.
I'd be interested to see like what you think and how you spin it. But that was that. And then Gifting Fire. I would give you Gifting Fire.
What did you do?
Yeah. Not having read it, but more dragons.
It's the sequel,
That's the sequel
to Stealing Thunder. There are more dragons.
More dragons.
It's intense.
Yay.
It's intense. It's darker than Stealing Thunder.
Okay.
But it turns out okay.
Okay. The Girl of Fire and Thorns by Ray Carson, right?
I really am a...
Oh, good. Okay. That's going to require some explanation. I Really Am a Slag Show is it's a FTN, a foreign translated novel.
Okay.
The author, the only thing I find on the author are the Chinese characters, so I have no idea how to say the author's name.
Interesting.
I'll put it in the show notes. So I have a friend who's very into foreign translated novels. So she reads so many of them and then sends me the decent ones. And I guess it's one of those areas that is rife with... And even this one, and it's hard to explain. I actually found a really good explanation of some of the controversy behind this whole niche or genre of translated novels, where it's gay lit. A lot of it, and a lot of the gay lit coming out of these foreign translated novels is male / fiction. But that's still very much fetishized.
Oh. So
there's a very valid argument to be made how gay relationships are portrayed. But the flip side of it is it's a very denigrated genre because the main readership is female.
Right.
So it's like so it's a little bit layered of a problem.
Yeah.
I'll dig up the link I found that very well summarized how this underlying problem in foreign translated novels. So
that comes up a lot. Like I've read academic critiques of fan fiction that say the same thing.
It's very similar. Yeah, it's the same kind of deal. So I know, Megan must be wading through so many much worse versions of this.
So not your favorite.
Well, no. So I actually it's one of the transmigration stories, which is are you familiar with this concept? So the idea is someone in the modern world usually dies and gets and then depending on the world building behind it. In this particular case, there's a weird it's called the system. Okay. And the idea is you can get reincarnated in several different plots. And if you achieve a certain number of plot points, then you score how many points, and once you reach a certain number of points, they'll resurrect you back into your body if you're successful. And if you're not, like, then you just die.
Oh.
So it's really cool. Like, some of the concepts are really cool.
That's really interesting.
And there are tons of transmigration stories.
Yeah.
So many. And then this one I enjoyed because the main character is not the brightest bull. And the system is, in this case, a character, and that's not always the case where the system is. So this, like, system is, like, kind of in his head and is meant to be helping him reach the plot points.
Okay.
So the system, like, he gets resurrected in these plot points, and then the system is like, here's what you need to achieve. And in each of the plot lines, he's a slag show, which is a this is more awkward explanation. In Chinese translated fics, the dominant role in a male slash is the gong, and the submissive role is the show. And a slag show is the trope where the main character has a relationship with a guy who ends up basically, like, destroying their lives for whatever reason. So they're, like, the misdirected, like, the first bad choice before the true love interest sweeps in and, like, saves them from all the bad decisions they made and the slag show's evilness. So he has to basically be the villain. So he has to meet all of these villainous plot points, but he's not, like, a bad guy. So at first he's like, okay, I can do this is fine. And then he actually has to do it, but a lot of the times, like, the slag show in these storylines, like, gets, like, beaten up or killed, like, because they're the villain, like, they get destroyed. And he's like, but I don't want to be destroyed. The system's like, I'm trying to explain how this works. If you want to be resurrected in your body, you just gotta do it. And he's like, fine, like, kicking and screaming, but he tries. But for some inexplicable reason, the main character keeps falling for this resurrected guy. No matter how bad his villainous character ends up being, he tries so hard to be evil, and the main character just somehow manages to explain it all the way every time. And some weird quirk happens, and the plot line just goes off the rails no matter what. And so the first time it happens, they're like, oh, you're learning the ropes, like, you'll be fine. Second time around, they're like, why are you so bad at this? It's not that hard. Just be a villain. Just let it happen. And then, like, the third time through, he's like, I just won't do anything. Like, I'll be, like, and the system keeps trying to help him out by giving him easy ones. Right. Like, all you have to do is sit there and not do anything. And he's like, okay, I'll sit here and not do anything. And somehow it keeps. So I love the world building. I love this premise. I love these, like, they're both kind of morons. Like, the system, it's interesting because there's a main system, and at some point, the system who's in his head keeps having to, like, check back in with, like, daddy system, and is like, I don't know what's happening, and it becomes apparent that the system is also not the brightest.
I love not so bright.
Right? It's fun when they're just little dum-dums doing their best. So it's one of those things where you have to be willing to deal with when the cringe comes up, you're like, okay. And then
just power through
it. And so, yeah.
Well, there's also a bit of cringe in The Girl with Fire and Thorns. We've talked about this. I mean, like, despite the body image issues and the bed, ... the stylistic choices, shall we say. Yeah. She does prove to be, like, both overweight and smart, which doesn't always happen in YA literature.
Are we considering just the first
I'm just talking about the first one. Because if it was the whole series, I would say I win. Yeah. Hands down. Give me my paper.
Yes. And I would agree.
But even with the first book, like, I really liked that she didn't just go along with her husband, the king, who like, you realize by the end of it, he is also kind of a dum-dum. And he doesn't try to be malicious, but if you're a dum-dum with that much power, like, your choices are going to hurt people. And she she intends, even though she falls in love with this kid, they're both kids, but like, one, there's that whole thing of like, the kid she falls in love with isn't the first guy she meets. And two, like, she has this really impressive sense of duty. And she's smart enough to, like, help the rebels pull off these sort of ridiculous, like, they're not that ridiculous. It's guerrilla warfare. But, like, she's just so smart. She's just so smart, and I love it.
Okay, I'll give you this one.
That's what it comes down to.
Last two.
I know.
I feel like you won the last few, so maybe.
Maybe.
Among the Silvering Herd.
Ruin and Rising.
Ha! So unless you're really...
Ruin and Rising is by Lee Bardugo. Mm-hmm. Among the Silvering Herd is by A.M. Della Monica.
Okay.
It's my prequel entry.
Okay.
For the bingo thing.
Oh, that's right.
And it's a prequel to Daughter of No Nation, I think it's called, which you would love. She's a biologist. Her mom is a biologist. Okay. And they're like iguanas and like ecological things. And also pirates.
What?
And a portal world.
Have you given this to me?
No, it's an ebook.
Dang it! Ruin and Rising is the third book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which of the three
wasn't so bad.
Was probably the best because that's when she has the whole cast and is finally like, let's I work better with more characters. But good lord, okay. And now we got The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reid.
Yeah, by Ava Reid. And then A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne Brown.
I have to think The Wolf and the Woodsman will win. A Song of Wraiths and Ruin was very good. I love Malik. Malik is one of the main characters. I think I already mentioned I can't remember her name, but the main character, the princess in A Song of Wraiths and Ruin, just spends a lot of time. I mean, they both honestly spend a lot of time hating on themselves.
Oh, great. That's fun.
And they both have, like, she has a very interesting, like, I don't know if PTSD is the right way to describe it, but her father and her sister died in this, like, horrible fire, I think, when she was a kid. And she has, like, no memories of that night. And
dun dun dun.
Wink. But her sister was supposed to become queen.
Oh,
and
so
like
she
had all the
spare.
skills. She's the spare.
Oh.
Her mom describes her as mediocre.
Oh,
like,
that's
and
fun.
she's like constantly being put down both by her mom and like the people around her. So they have a very strained relationship. And they're both misunderstanding why their relationship is so strange, just because they won't communicate. And then as soon as they have a chance to communicate, her mom's assassinated.
Oh, fun!
Like, almost as they're having this conversation.
Oh, great. That's my favorite.
And this is not spoilers. This is, like, on the back cover, I think. Yeah. Like, and then Malik is a refugee from the Eshran Mountains, I think is the name of the place he's from. And he's there with his two sisters. He's, like, the middle. And they're trying to sneak into this capital because they're, like, it's like almost like a race issue. Like, you're from the Eshran Mountains and we don't want you here. So they're pretending they're from a nearby legit city. Yeah.
There were air quotes.
There were air quotes. So they're trying to sneak in, but because Malik has like this moment of like kind weakness for someone, he gets all their papers stolen, all their forged papers.
Oh no!
And so they and that was like their one shot to do this. So right away it's like, why can't you do anything right? Okay. Now, like, our family's screwed, we're screwed, and it's all your fault. He has an anxiety problem.
Yeah, I bet he does.
He has a magic ability, basically, like, to interact with the magic, like, a kind of other world around them. So he can see, like, spirits and other magical creatures. But everyone has spent his whole life telling him that
he's nuts.
Oh,
that's fun.
So he thinks there's something wrong with him, in addition to his anxiety problems.
Poor baby.
And then they have a run-in with a big, giant magical serpent. While they're, I don't know, like running around outside the city, like, what are we gonna do now?
Papers? Yeah.
I think the little sister makes a wish. The storyteller, there's a special name, like a griot. I don't know. I don't remember. But there's special...
That's what happens when we
I know.
retell books without them in front of us.
Special storyteller who definitely has, like, more going on than...
Meets the eye.
Yeah. His little sister guesses is able to answer the riddle in the story, and whoever guesses the riddle gets a wish with the storyteller, and it's meant to be like a cute little, oh, what's your wish? And they were like, no, we don't have time for this or whatever. But the little kid goes ahead out, like, she's 6. She, like, goes ahead and spits out her wish, and it's like something for the family. It's something like, you know, I wish we could get in, or I don't remember. But the point is, the cost for doing magic, I don't remember they got from point A to point B. But however that happens, basically this evil giant serpent kidnaps her.
Oh, great.
And is like, this is the cost for doing magic in my realm, basically.
Oh, man.
And you'll get your wish. Or, yeah, to get into the city. And so that wish is granted, and they managed to sneak their way into the city. But then the serpent popped up. And
takes the kid.
And at first Malik is like... I'm really hallucinating now, but now her sisters can see it because it's, like, really happening.
Yeah.
And then, so all of a sudden, Malik learns that he's not insane, and now this evil servant has...
That would be really destabilizing mentally.
Yep, yeah. Poor Malik, man. My boy's going through it. And then the serpent's like, I get your life. And then they're like, no, let's bargain, or something. Like, there's gotta be something you want. And somehow they arrive at... I'll give you your sister back if you manage to assassinate the princess.
Oh, great.
And the princess...
Oh, God.
So the princess is stepping into her mother's role, does not want to be queen, thinks she's not suited to be queen, thinks that, like, because, you know, she's been put down her whole life.
Right. Self-esteem issues.
She finds out that there is a ritual that she could do to bring someone back to life. And it's, like, it's one of those things where, like, is this really a ritual? Like, would it even work? Is it real? Would it work? Can I even get the things that I would need to do it? Because it's a bunch of, like, crazy, like, you need, like...
at the very bottom of list of concerns is this a good idea?
Yep. Exactly. No, she immediately thinks it's a great idea. Well, no, that's not true. That's not true. She, if the other concerns were ticked off, it would be a fantastic idea. Unfortunately, one of the conditions is she needs the heart of a king.
Oh, great.
So
she marries somebody, kills him.
So so this is all happening around this, like, 50-year festival, I think.
Oh, that's not
It's called
ominous.
Solstatia. I think it's 50 years. I might be mixing some books up, but this very occasion, it has to do with a comet going around. Okay. And it turns out that there's this magic that the ruler of this... There's a lot going on in this book, but the ruler of the city can't leave the city if they want the magical protection of, like, this weird comet. And the Solstatia Festival is a way of renewing this magical protection. So she has to go through this, like, whole song and dance to keep the protections in place. And part of that is there are these different factors, like there's a sun clan and a moon clan, and when you're born, you're, like, depending on, like, what day of the week, I think, you get assigned to one of the 7 clans.
Okay.
And each clan kind of gets to, like, they each choose a champion, and then they go through, like, 3 tasks. It's a 3-task thing. And then she gets to set the prize of the winner, and she's like, whoever wins gets to marry me. Because then she gets the heart of a king. So she's trying to murder, basically, and then he ends up being the... Of course. And it's just to magic his way, actually, into being the... Because he's like, this is how I get close to her.
Right.
And she's like, I need to... So they're both basically plotting to kill each other the whole book. And they're both really anxious, falling apart stress balls about it. So in some ways it's delightful. In some ways it's very stressful. All the moving pieces were, like, I felt were really well done and really well layered. Like, for all that's going on, like
it hangs together.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think so I'm definitely gonna read the second one. I think I don't know that I'll buy it. I might library it to, like, just to see how it ends and then decide if I'm gonna hold on to it.
Is it a duology?
It's a duology. Yeah,
that's
the second
nice.
one comes out in November. I started it thinking it was a standalone, and it was not.
Do you know what is a standalone?
The Wolf in the Woods.
Yup. It's 400 pages, but it's a standalone. Yours sounds good, but The Wolf of the Woods one was amazing. Okay. It was so smart. I still can't believe it was a debut. Like, this is her first book.
I forgot to say the end of the climax of the first book. Do you want me to actually spoil it, or?
Sure.
Future Gabi here, one last time to let you know that Smack let me ruin a key part of the end of A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. And spoilers for that last until about the 56-minute and 5-second mark. So, thanks, Smack!
So, what ends up happening is, so I don't remember the details, but Malik basically, like, the serpent comes out and is like, hi, I'm, like, I really just wanted to be free this whole time. I didn't give a crap about any of this. They accidentally let him free.
Okay.
Or break the, because he was actually the thing that was being trapped by the magical thing.
The serpent was?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So they accidentally release him somehow. There was a lot going on at the end. I don't remember. Somehow her sister gets resurrected, and
instead of her mom.
because there's someone else who's like doing evil shenanigans behind the scenes, who's I think in cahoots with the serpent too. So like they have their whole thing going on, and the serpent's like, "Ha! I got what I wanted." And Malik was like, "But you could really get what you wanted if you came inside my brain and possessed my body for a bit."
That sounds like a great idea.
And then he basically triggers an anxiety attack, which traps the serpent in his, like, however, I don't remember the details, but that's essentially
so
what happens.
smart!
Isn't that awesome? That was, like, the best part. Anyway, that was the coolest part of it, was...
That's so smart!
And he used his mental illness against the thing.
That's so amazing.
It was so great.
Okay, I'll read it.
Anyway, sorry, I knew you'd like that particular bit. Anyway, but I still think probably overall The Wolf and the Woodsman wins this.
I would fight you for
one. Okay.
if I had to. But
If the second one ended really well, I would fight for maybe the series as a whole. But because I was, like, frustrated with this whole, like, they were just putting themselves down the whole book. So I was like, guys. But I really liked everything else. Pretty much like everything else about that book. It was great.
All right.
Okay,
How
so
many do we
count
have?
time. I'm pretty sure you won.
12.
9.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. 13. That was not trash. That was a title. Okay. How did that happen?
I don't know.
There were some really good books in the bingo, though.
Yeah.
Like,
We got a really good mix.
Yeah, I'm really glad we did this.
Congrats.
You win this time.
Maybe we'll do this again in autumn for no particular bingo. We'll just pick
a bunch of
many
books
books
we
from
read.
autumn. Yeah. Do this again sometime. Until next time, here's hoping
You win at bingo.
This has been another episode of Infinite TBR. You can find us on our Twitter at Infinite TBR.
And we are individually on Twitter as @WhatSmackSaid and @Gabalodon, which is like Megalodon, but Gab in the front of it. And you can find all our show notes at infinitetbr.com. If you have book recommendations for us or questions you want answered during the podcast, feel free to email us at itbrshelf@gmail.com.